Warren is 71 years old and has more money than he has ever had in his life. Last March, he did something he had never done before. He printed 12 months of bank statements, sat at the kitchen table with a pen, and went through every recurring charge line by line. It took him most of a Saturday. He was not looking for fraud. He was not in trouble. He was doing it because his daughter had asked him a question he could not answer. What do you actually spend your money on now? By the end of the afternoon, he had circled 41 recurring charges. He recognized all of them. He could explain every single one. And he could not remember the last time he had used 19 of them. Not canceled them. Not questioned them. Just quietly kept paying, month after month, for a version of his life that had ended somewhere around the time he stopped working. The 19 came to $410 a month. Warren called it what it was. A room he had walked out of years ago, with the meter still running. Here is what makes this interesting, and it is not what you think. Warren is not poor. Warren is not struggling. Warren is, by any reasonable measure, one of the people who got it right. He saved for 4 decades. He retired without debt, and his portfolio has grown since he stopped adding to it. So this is not a video about cutting back. If you are watching this because money is tight, I want to be honest with you. This is not that video, and I do not want to waste your time. This is about something stranger. It is about the fact that the retirees who stay wealthy, the ones whose money lasts 30 years instead of 18, consistently stop buying a specific set of things. Not the obvious ones. Not coffee, not restaurants, not vacations. They keep those. Some of them spend more on those than they did while working. What they stop buying is quieter than that, and every item on the list has the same shape. It is something that made complete sense during the accumulation years and quietly stopped making sense the day the paychecks ended. 7 of them. Each one with the mechanism, a real number, and one thing you can check tonight. Number 4 is the one nobody expects, and number 7 is the one people find hardest to say out loud. One promise. Before we start, nothing on this list is a sacrifice. I am not going to tell you to give something up that you enjoy. Every item here is something that, once it goes, you genuinely do not miss, and most people report feeling lighter rather than poorer. If at the end you decide none of them apply to you, that is a completely acceptable outcome. You will just know why. The first thing wealthy retirees stop buying is insurance on things they could simply pay for. Extended warranties, appliance service plans, the protection package on the washing machine, the 3-year cover on the television. Individually, they are small, which is exactly why they survive. Here is the origin. These products exist because, for most of your life, an unexpected $900 repair was genuinely a problem. It meant a credit card, or a month of tightening, or a difficult conversation. Paying a little every month to make that impossible was not stupidity. It was a reasonable purchase of peace. Now the contrast. Industry figures put the average household spend on extended warranties and service plans somewhere around $300 a year. And the overwhelming majority of those plans are never claimed on. That is the business model. It is not a scam. It is simply a bet, and the house sets the odds. The mechanism is the part that matters. An insurance policy is worth buying when the loss would change your life. It is worth skipping when the loss would merely annoy you. Somewhere between the age of 30 and the age of 65, most of these losses cross that line, and nobody told you. Take Warren. Among the 19 charges he circled were 4 separate protection plans. Total, $312 a year. He canceled all 4 and moved the money nowhere in particular. $312 a year, invested at 6% for the 20 years he expects to be around, comes to about $11,000. $11,000 is not life-changing. That is the point. The money is not why this is item number 1. It is item number 1 Because it is the easiest place to notice the pattern that runs through all 7. What to do tonight. Find every protection plan you are paying for. For each one, ask a single question. If this broke tomorrow and nobody covered it, would I actually be in trouble? The second thing they stop buying is newness, not things. Newness, the specific act of replacing something that still works with a slightly better version of itself. This one has an origin that most people have never examined. During your working life, the upgrade cycle was tied to your income cycle. A raise arrived, and within a few months, something in the house got replaced. Not deliberately. It just happened, and it happened because upgrading was how a raise became visible. The contrast is stark. Wealthy retirees replace things when they stop working. That is the whole rule. It sounds obvious written down, and almost nobody does it. The mechanism is behavioral, not financial. The upgrade cycle is a habit loop with a trigger, new money in, and a reward, the feeling of moving forward. When the income stops, the trigger disappears, but the loop does not. So the loop starts firing on the wrong signal. Boredom, anniversary, a friend's new car, a Tuesday. Colette retired at 63 from 30 years in hospital administration. For the first 2 years of retirement, she replaced, in order, a phone that worked, a car that worked, a laptop that worked, and a sofa that worked. She had not planned any of it. Each purchase had felt individually reasonable. Together, they came to just under $24,000. She stopped, not out of discipline, but because she noticed. $2,400 a year redirected at 6% over 20 years is about $88,000. If the numbers in this are useful to you, subscribe. This channel goes through the actual arithmetic every time, and the next one takes this same idea somewhere much less comfortable. Which brings us to the third thing, and this is the one that costs the most by a very wide margin. What to do tonight. Name the last 3 things you replaced. For each, ask whether the old one had actually stopped working. The third thing wealthy retirees stop buying is financial advice priced as a percentage of their money. I want to be careful here, because this is not an attack on advisors. Good advice is worth paying for, and most people should have some. This is about the pricing model, and only the pricing model. The standard arrangement charges roughly 1% of the assets under management every year. On a portfolio of $200,000, that is $2,000 a year, which is defensible. On a portfolio of $1.2 million, the same arrangement, for very often the same amount of work, costs $12,000 a year. Here is the mechanism, and it is uncomfortable. The fee scales with your balance. The work does not. A larger portfolio does not require proportionally more meetings, more rebalancing, or more thought. So the moment your savings crossed a certain size, you began paying a great deal more for something that had not changed. Wealthy retirees notice this earlier than everyone else, and they respond in a very specific way. They do not fire the advisor. They change how they pay. Flat annual retainer, or hourly for a review once or twice a year, typically somewhere between $250 and $400 an hour. Hugo made exactly this switch at 68, with $1.2 million invested. He now pays about $3,000 a year for 2 half-day reviews instead of $12,000 for a relationship he described, quite fondly, as pleasant and infrequent. $9,000 a year at 6% over 15 years is roughly $209,000. On this single line. The meter had been running for 11 years before he looked at it. What to do tonight? Find out, in dollars and not in percent, what you paid your advisor last year. If you cannot find the number, that is itself the finding. The fourth thing they stop buying is the convenience that removes movement from their day. This is the one nobody expects on a money list, and I have put it at number 4 deliberately, because it is the only item here where the financial argument is the weaker half. The origin is simple, and it is not laziness. During your working years, time was genuinely the scarce resource. Paying someone to deliver the groceries, cut the grass, drive you the 8 minutes into town. That was a rational trade of money for hours you did not have. Everyone reading a spreadsheet would have made the same call. Then you retired, and the arithmetic inverted completely. Time stopped being scarce. It became, for many people, the thing there is suddenly too much of. But the standing orders did not invert with it. They just carried on. The mechanism has two halves. The first is money. Delivery fees, service charges, the mower man. The small conveniences add up to something like $1,500 to $2,000 a year in a typical suburban household. The second half is the one that matters more, and the research on it is not subtle. Unstructured daily movement. Walking to the store, carrying things, working in a garden. Tracks strongly with how long people stay independent. It counts even when it does not look like exercise. Delia is 74. She canceled the grocery delivery not to save the $400 a year, but because her physiotherapist pointed out that it had removed the only reliable walk in her week. 18 months later, she still walks it. She describes the money as the least interesting part. What to do tonight? List the things you pay someone else to do that you are still physically capable of doing, not the ones you hate, the ones you simply stopped. The fifth thing, wealthy retirees stop buying, is square footage. And I mean buying in the present tense. You bought the house once. You buy the space every single month, forever, and almost nobody counts it that way. The origin needs no explaining. You bought a house sized for the largest version of your household. The children, the dog, the visiting family, the home office. That was correct. It was correct for about 20 years. Here's the contrast that catches people. The house did not shrink when the household did. 2 people now live in a building designed for 5, and the 400 square feet nobody has entered since Christmas still costs money every month. Heating it, cooling it, insuring it, taxing it, and eventually repairing it. The mechanism is that unused space is invisible in a way that unused subscriptions are not. There is no line on any statement that says empty bedroom. The cost is spread across 6 other bills, which is precisely why it survives for decades. Rough figures put the all-in carrying cost of residential space at something in the region of $5 per square foot per year, once you add tax, utilities, insurance, and maintenance. 400 unused square feet is therefore about $2,000 a year. At 6% over 20 years, that is roughly $73,000. Bernice did not move. That is the part I want you to hear. Because most videos on this topic end with sell the house, and most people do not want to. She converted the 2 unused rooms into one long workshop, canceled the storage unit she had been renting for 9 years to hold the things that now live in it, and stopped heating the far end of the house in winter. What to do tonight? Walk your home and count the rooms nobody has been inside this month. That is all. Just the count. The 6th thing they stop buying is the large object that produces happiness a few weeks a year and invoices you for 12 months. The camper van, the boat, the second home, the timeshare, the motorcycle in the garage. The origin here is the most sympathetic on the entire list, and I am not going to be sniffy about it. These purchases are almost always made in the first 2 years of retirement, and they are made for a genuinely good reason. You have just been handed freedom, and you want an object that proves it. Now the contrast, and this is the number that stops people. Industry surveys of owners consistently find that recreational vehicles get used around 3 weeks a year. 3 weeks. Everything else in the year is storage. The mechanism is a mismatch between how the cost arrives and how the pleasure arrives. The pleasure is concentrated. 3 brilliant weeks. The cost is continuous. Insurance, storage, depreciation, registration, maintenance, and the slow guilt of a thing sitting unused. All-in ownership on a mid-range camper runs somewhere near $6,800 a year. Over 3 weeks of use, that is more than $300 for every single day you are actually in it. Errol sold his at 72 and now rents one for 2 weeks each summer at roughly $200 a day. He gets the same 3 weeks. He does not get the 10 months of storage fees, and he does not get the specific feeling of driving past it in the driveway in February. The meter, again. Running all year for a room he entered in July. What to do tonight? For anything large that you own and use seasonally, divide what it costs you in a year by the number of days you actually used it. Do not estimate the days generously. The seventh thing wealthy retirees stop buying is the appearance of still being in the game. This is the one people find hardest to say out loud, and it is the reason I put it last. The club membership. The season tickets you attend twice. The professional wardrobe for a profession you left. The car that signals a salary you no longer earn. The charitable giving at a level set by a job title rather than by conviction. The origin is not vanity, and I want to be exact about that. For most of your working life, these things were not decoration. They were infrastructure. The club was where deals happened. The wardrobe was a uniform. The car was a credential in an industry that read cars. You were not buying status for its own sake. You were buying access, and it paid for itself. The mechanism is that the access ended and the invoice did not. On the day you retired, every one of those purchases quietly changed category, from a cost of doing business to a cost of being seen as someone who still does business. And that second thing has no return at all. Constance kept a club membership for 6 years after leaving the firm. $4,200 a year. She used it, by her own count, 11 times in the final 2 years, and never once for the reason she had originally joined. She described canceling it as the only genuinely difficult item on her own list. Not because of the money, because saying it out loud meant admitting the season it belonged to was over. That is the whole list. And here is what it adds up to. What to do tonight? Find one recurring cost that exists because of who you used to be. You do not have to cancel it. Just identify it. Look at the 7 together and notice that not one of them is about spending less. Insurance you no longer need. Newness with no trigger behind it. A fee that grew while the work stayed the same. Convenience that removed the walk. Rooms nobody enters. An object that bills for 12 months and delivers for 3 weeks. The uniform of a job that ended. Every single one made complete sense at the time it started. Every single one kept running after the reason for it stopped. That is the only thing on this list that is actually shared, which means the skill here is not discipline, and it is not frugality. Warren was disciplined for 40 years. That is how he got the money. The skill is noticing once that a decision made in 1998 is still executing in 2026 without anyone having renewed it. Wealthy retirees are not better at saying no. They are better at asking occasionally whether anyone is still in the room. Warren finished his Saturday afternoon with 19 circles on a bank statement and $410 a month that had been leaving his account for a life he had stopped living. He did not cancel all 19. He kept 4 of them, deliberately, after deciding they were worth it, which is a completely different act from keeping them because he had never looked. The 15 he canceled came to about $290 a month. Over the 20 years, he expects, at 6%, roughly $128,000. But when his daughter asked him afterwards what he had learned, he did not mention the number. He said that for 11 years he had been paying to keep the lights on in rooms he had walked out of, and that nobody had ever told him he was allowed to go back and switch them off. You are allowed. That is the entire video. Tell me in the comments which of the 7 you recognized. I read every single one.